Are you an inclusive leader? Do you accidentally exclude your team without realising it? Look, I have zero question of your intentions as a leader. Heck, even clicking on this video to watch tells me that you care about people, you want to ensure that your team are engaged and you're not leaving anyone out. Hi, I'm 𝗬𝗂𝗯𝘀𝗰𝗿𝗄𝗯𝗲, I'm the founder of the Awesome Offsite, and today we're tackling the increasing focus on diversity and inclusion at team events. Now let's start by looking at the difference between the two. Diversity, that's being invited to the party. Inclusion, though, is being asked to dance. Let's use Bridgerton as an example. Inclusion is when you play the role of the proper gentleman. The best hosts don't just plan a great do, but they ask their guests to join them on the dance floor. They aren't just the host that puts on the soiree of the season, because we all want to put on a great event, right? But they don't just sit back and watch the wallflowers. Okay, maybe. As I'm saying this, I already think I'm taking this one too far, this Bridgerton point. The point I'm trying to make is that, like all noble hosts, as leaders, you're looking to avoid pitfall number 4, which is unconscious exclusion. So, team events, it's obvious how some activities like cocktail making or physically demanding stuff like sports matches could be exclusionary. Imagine inadvertently forcing, and I've seen this, a recovering alcoholic to spend the afternoon making cocktails, or the asthma sufferer who's forced to stand at the sidelines of a company sports day. Do you reckon that both of them are probably counting down the hours until they can go home? You get that raft building might be someone's idea of hell. You'll know that well if you watched the last video where I talked about avoiding too much mandatory fun. The thing though about unconscious exclusion is though it can occur in less obvious ways too. For instance, when we fail to actually involve the team within the event itself. Now this one is a little bit more sneaky, but I see it way too often. A super common setup for a team day is some sort of work thing in the morning followed by an afternoon of fun. Often the leader will use their morning to deploy their strategy. The team is often then expected to just simply adopt that strategy without being really invited to input into it. When this happens, it becomes a little bit more like a performance than when people are feeling like they're welcomed or included or involved. And when events happen like that, we run the risk that people feel more like passengers than participants. It also puts a lot of pressure on the leader to have it all prepped, perfect, ready to share. For me, there's a huge unmet opportunity for leaders to include their teams and involve their teams in the development of this strategy, to create and allow more time for discussion or opinions to be shared within their events. Which is why tip 4 is all about conscious inclusion. You might have heard me reference Google Project Aristotle before. That study looking at what set apart a high-performing team from the rest. Well, the number one finding of what distinguished those high-performing teams from the other teams was psychological safety. The findings are examined closer in this New York Times article. There was one particular quote in it that really stood out to me, and I often start a workshop by actually sharing it with the participants. Really as a nudge to encourage them that I want to hear from everyone. It was this: as long as everyone got the chance to talk, the team did well, but if one person or a small group spoke all the time, then the collective intelligence declined. See, it's actually pivotal for the success of a team, therefore, to try to include everyone, not just because you should, but because actually you're going to increase the collective intelligence of the group. Of course, it's not always possible to be 100% inclusive. The majority of your team might enjoy drinks, the minority might not. But at least be conscious of it and don't center your whole team building around it. You know, I see it so often that leaders rely so heavily on drinks to help a team connect or bond. Look, this might be controversial to say, but relying on drinks alone to help your team connect, that's just lazy leadership. This leadership thing is not easy. Including everyone, it actually also might, in some cases, not be the best strategy. Now, I used to have a more the merrier perspective. I used to think everyone should be welcome, be super, super, super inclusive. But when I read this book, it actually transformed my thinking around that. In it, 𝗂𝗶𝗶𝗶𝗶 talks about the fact that by closing the door, you actually create the room. We'll dive into this much deeper in a future video, but that perspective really helped me appreciate that real inclusion doesn't just mean including everyone in everything, but being intentional about who and how you include. And when you've created the room, to be conscious that you've created it, and conscious about what you create within it. Now, the 𝗬𝗲𝗯𝗶 is, as I say, a rabbit hole for a future episode, but if I leave you with one takeaway, it's by slowing down and casting a careful eye over your plans to see how inclusive are they really. A truly inclusive experience can really create a sense of belonging. We feel part of something, we feel heard, valued. It's no one's intention to leave people out, but it can be, when you're on the other side of it, really frustrating. True inclusion means more than dietary preferences or ensuring non-alcoholic options are available. It's actually about making an effort to make every team member feel valued, feel part of it. And at the end of the day, as the Google study showed, we want high-performing teams, right? Well, conscious inclusion is a path to that. So that's a wrap. If you found this episode at all useful, please like, subscribe. This video is just one in a series of 10 pitfalls and ideas to really help you seriously up your team event game. But if you're at all curious about which pitfall is most relevant for you, then I'm going to invite you to take 2 minutes, 3 minutes to take this really quick offsite effectiveness assessment. You're going to get a personalized report, plus we'll direct you to the video that's going to be most helpful for you to make sure that you avoid it, so that you make the most of the moments you're bringing your team together. So go do that now, link will be below. And I'll leave you with this quote. The art of leadership is in knowing how both to be inviting and challenging, to draw people into the room where change happens. My hope is that this video has been helpful for you, and I'll see you on the next video.